Well, good morning for us and good evening to you, Amina and Kadija and Little Martians. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please start off by sharing a little bit about the work that you're doing with students for us around the world.
So, hi, Kevin, Shona. Um, Thank you for having us here. So, I'm Kadija. I'm the co-founder of the Little Martians. I am basically an information technology engineer. So, from there, after graduation, both of us got placement in IT companies, and then when we had our kids, we were wondering about the educational system, the same educational system that's been given to us, and that has been followed to our kids as well without any change or progress. So we thought, what change can we bring to this system, and that's how we thought about Little Martians. So Little Martians was founded in 2016 by Amina and myself, and it is basically we want to implement experience based education, because in India we usually have a textbook based learning and less of activities. So we wanted to bring this activity thing into place, and that's how the Little Martians was born. And Amna.
Hi, I'm Amina. As Kadija has already mentioned, I'm one of the founders of the Little Martian. I am an electronics engineer, and academically, both of us, we were brilliant students. But then, when it comes to the practical knowledge, we were a big zero. So that's when we started thinking about like changing the educational system, the drawbacks of even the engineer, the BTech, the Bachelor of Technology, or even similar streams. And then, like as Khadija said, when we started to settle down, when we had kids, and we were very sure about one thing. We never wanted our kids to have the same sort of education. So we wanted something more of experiential, where it's okay even if they don't study a lot. They can study less, but let them learn it. Whatever we are teaching, let them just learn it. So that's what we believe in.
Okay. Amina, Kadija, did you meet in college? Did you meet on the workplace? How did you, I mean, obviously you're in two different countries. So how did you come together? How did you meet?
I'm from India, and actually, me and Amna, Amna is my sister-in-law, so that's how, we are family. So that's how we had this discussion going on. We used to have everyday conversations on, how we can bring a change to this, and we need to work on this. And we just started with an Instagram page. We used to share our posts and everything. Then, from there we went to offline classes, physical classes, and when lockdown hit, we turned it into online sessions.
That's fantastic. I really like what you had you said about the idea there's a difference between studying and learning, right? And so it seems as though maybe your style of education there, which I want to ask you more about, is more about just the books study for this and for some end game versus the understanding and the deeper concepts of learning. Can you share a little bit about what the education system looked like for you coming up, and maybe contrast that to any progress that it has made?
When we were in school, it was rote textbook learning. Like we had like a set of chapters. Let it be science. We had a set of chapters in physics, chemistry, biology. So we had to learn whatever was written in the textbooks. Even our teachers used to say, like, read the textbook again and again. Even if you understand the concepts, read it again and again so that you don't forget. But what's the whole point? The key highlight is in grasping the concept, right? What's the point in reading it again and again? I used to get bored reading it again and again, but now I realize it was a good thing to feel bored, like reading the same thing again and again. But things have changed a lot. We have schools which focus on experiential learning, and again, but these schools are very limited. It is accessible only to the cream layer of the society. You must be knowing about India. We have different tiers in our society. So we want experiential education and STEM learning to be accessible to all the people in the country, all the students in the country, not just the cream layer. So you wanted to know about the current educational system or what we have in vision?
Both, actually. I was looking at how it was when you were coming up, which allowed you to make the decision to bring about Little Martians, and whether or not it's changed or if it's still that way for the rest of the students there.
The positive part is a percentage of parents have realized, like people like us, they realize the importance of experiential learning, like they understand the drawbacks of the education system. So these people actually try to bring about a change in the system in the way they are trying to teach their children and all. But again, when you take the picture as a whole, when you look at it as a whole, it's more or less the same.
Yeah.
And we have STEM programs and all, but it comes as an after school program or as an extracurricular activity, which is something we're really disappointed about.
Do you think it's as the younger generational parents, like such as yourselves and those behind you, do you think that that's really where the change will take about? It's usually the older, parental regime who likes things the way they were versus kind of like the new movement coming in?
I'm not sure if it's just about age, because we ourselves know people who just don't like experiential education. Like when we send our kids to schools, they say like we really are not happy with the system of learning. They're not learning enough, because they often tend to compare with students who are still doing the rote textbook learning. Like a student can learn alphabets at the age of 3, 4, 5. I don't mind even if my child learns it at the age of 6 or 7, because I feel there is much more she can learn, like when she is younger, just rather than just learning the alphabets.
Right.
So yeah, it depends. It's a personal perspective.
So with the Little Martians, first of all, how did you come up with the name? And what are the major elements that the experiential elements that you like to offer your students?
Yeah, when we actually thought about the name, we thought of the thing like so the sky is the limit. So we were like, there's now sky is not the limit; it is beyond that. Then we thought about Martians, because everyone's behind Mars right now. So we were like, okay, Martians, and about Little Martians. That's how we coined the name. And when the Little Martians it came up, we were like, okay, it sounds cool. It stands out. So we thought we'll go about it. Then, yeah, what was the second question, Kevin?
What sort of describe your opportunities or programs for your students that
Yes.
are your draw? What are your best draws?
So, what I'll say is say by an example. So we learned about Newton's law and everything, right? So we've all in India. I'm not sure how you have done it. So in India, we always learned the third law as every law has every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So we learned it by heart. Okay, we just thought okay, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. But how does it actually work? We never knew about it, knew anything about it, because we never did any activity based on that. So, when we are teaching our kids right now, like our students right now, we first we make them do the activity, then we make them observe what happened. They tell us their observation first. Then we go to then we explain, okay, there was Newton, and he explained, this is how he came up with Newton's law of motions, and this is the third law of Newton's, Newton's laws of motion, and this is how we go about. We do the activity first, then we explain the theory, or whatever is behind it, because the science behind it. We don't go to jump into the theory first, then do the activity. We make them do the activity first, then we show them, okay, this is what happens, and this is how this law is is used to prove that. Yes.
That's very good. Similarly, when I start talking to students about planet motion, I always start with a pendulum or a roller coaster, because every child has experience with one or both of those.
Tell me a little bit about the students of Little Martians age range. My understanding is that they were younger, than a lot of people think can actually grasp those concepts. And are they all from India, or Kadija, since you are, not in India, are students from around the world at this point, or mostly focused in India because you're face to face?
We focus on India, but we have had students from the Middle East, from UK. So yeah, we have had kids from other countries as well, but our primary focus is in India because see, we started it as offline classes, like physical hands-on classes, and then we shifted to online platforms just because of the pandemic. And our kids, we start at the age of 8, but we have had some kids as young as 6. Like some parents were really confident, like my kid can do it, and yeah, they really did it. So generally, our age group is from 8 to 13 years.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Good range. Yeah. And I think that you had mentioned earlier that, kids who are that young are really starting to kind of grasp things that oftentimes we think are for older kids. And I refer to that a lot as that identity, right? Like if I see it, I don't know that, what I can or can't be until I actually see myself in that kind of thing. So do you have a lot of balance with girls and boys, or do you find that your program is more heavily attended by one versus the other?
No,
I
actually,
always feel, yeah, Kadija, go on.
no, for coding, we have noticed it's mostly boys. We're not sure why, because if we have 10 kids, 8 of them would be boys, or that's the ratio. But when it comes to STEM, we have both boys and girls. But when it comes to coding, it's really about boys. How about at your place, Kevin and Shona? What have you observed?
So my experience is you don't have to recruit very hard for guys. The guys love the boys love the aerospace and the science. Girls, when the program was mostly just in classroom after school, the girls were stronger than the boys in middle school. There were as many of them, and they were really bright. They were higher achieving in most cases than the boys,
and much more organized. I mean, like they could take larger tasks and break them into pieces and manage them well.
I would say since COVID, when a majority of our activities went online for a while, then it became more boys than girls. So our hope is we're back into some schools now. We have three different after school places we meet, and my hope is that more girls will be coming, and they are. So that's my hope.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest challenges that you think your teachers in India or even Saudi Arabia face when it comes to changing education?
We have a very strict curriculum-based education. So the curriculum is set, and the curriculum is good, but it's huge. Like I don't know how a child can learn so much of things, but the teachers are also put under the same pressure. Like there are a lot of holidays coming up, and there are after school activities. So among all this, they have to meet the requirements. They have to meet the curriculum requirements. So when we have like 9 months of classes going on, they have to teach a lot. So I always feel that they really don't get the bandwidth, the space, or the time to introduce innovation, like to change their learning methods. It's just going with the flow, just trying to teach the same thing like they did the last year. And again, as you said, I don't think the teachers have the liberty also, like to make decisions, because we are working independently. Like we are a separate firm. We have the freedom. Like we can teach whatever we choose to, right? So we can change our teaching methods. For example, we always try to bring some storytelling, some story, some narrative to the sessions to make it more interesting. But I don't think the teachers will have the liberty to do that in the classrooms because of their deadlines, if I might say.
Yeah. I think we faced some of those similar issues here. We're undergoing, I think, in the United States, a huge shift in what we value as education anyway. And I don't see us going back to some of the traditional methods, which in a way is good. But I think that we've left behind a lot of the foundational parts of the basics in exchange for trying to meet everybody and make sure everyone's feeling good versus that. How do you balance? It sounds like you come from a very traditional background as well that wants to change a little bit. How do you balance the foundational educational core knowledge with the idea of experiential and more innovative techniques?
No, we actually have the same, the base is the same, only the method is different. we try to follow the same curriculum and everything, but we want to add more of activities, and also we want to, the syllabus also, what we have learned and what our children are learning, the textbook would be the same. There is no progress in that. So there have been a lot of progress made in science, but we try to bring that aspect also into whatever activities we are doing. But the base is the same because it's all science, math, physics, chemistry. It's all the same. And one more thing I would like to add about the education system in Saudi Arabia is, in Indian schools in Saudi Arabia, it is, the teachers are not that qualified. That problem is there because they don't get that much qualified teachers. So what they do is, just what the housewives, when they don't find a job, they just recruit they don't care about the qualification. Actually, they just want to fill the teachers, the vacancies. That's it. So that is a problem that students face in Indian schools. But when it comes to international schools, they do have a lot of activities, but it's basically it's more of art and craft than science and coding. So that's what we always see here in Saudi Arabia.
Mm, that's interesting. Here, I'm wondering, I like to use entrepreneurship in the classes because I feel like the world we live in now, it's important that young people know how to see a problem and try to create the solution for it. Do you see any applications of that? Do you see any entrepreneurship sort of filtering down to the younger students in any schools in that you work with in either country?
Kevin, I didn't get it clearly. Are you asking about the entrepreneurship part?
Right. Are principles of entrepreneurship incorporated into any of the classrooms for the students, even down at the age that you see? Or would you say that's not really a focus that you see in any way in the Indian school system?
I have read about similar incidents in Indian schools, but personally, yeah, probably one or two students like who have done like shows and all, like cookery shows and all. Apart from that, as an entrepreneur, I haven't come across any of the students personally, but I have read about such children in newspapers and magazines.
I'm thinking some of your coding students might develop apps, for example, and then, kind of give a business pitch about how they would go about getting that marketed. I have a question about funding, actually. How, obviously these programs take money in order to get off the ground, whether it's for the traditional system or for an independent one. Are programs available for parents who might want this for their children, but are not financially able? And at the same time, are there programs available for schools or for teachers who are looking to bring them?
Not really. We have not come across much opportunities like that. But there are, now organizations like TIE, the Young Entrepreneur Programs. That's like a new program by the government of India as well. But about the effectiveness, I'm not sure. But if they have an idea, they actually don't know where to go and how to go about it. That is, that is a case here in India. How is it there in USA? We would like to know that as well.
It's interesting. The words, the STEM word, right? And I say that with the air quotes because it's used so much and it doesn't always mean experiential, right? And it's a way to get money because I don't know how many years ago, Kevin, what about maybe 10 years ago, STEM came on the forefront and that was going to change education. So if you put that anywhere in your proposal, you were probably going to get funded. Most people here, at least in the public schools, because we have obviously two public schools and private schools, the public are run by the government. We get our funding based on just those federal tax dollars, or even sometimes by local municipalities or local taxes. So sometimes those schools, depending upon where you live, can be better or worse. So they'll get grants, but they're used mostly for, iPads.
Yeah, from a school standpoint, I think America went to if at all possible, can we give a child a device, right? Either a tablet or a laptop. That's sort of one, and institutionally, from an IT standpoint, it was, can we wire the schools, for internet, high-speed internet, even better, and also an area that I'd say 12 years ago really got on fire was maker spaces,
Right, robotics.
like 3D printing, 3D
Oh, is it
printing.
different?
Yes, and robotics is a pretty popular after school activity, but I would definitely say the maker space is something that has caught on where 15 years ago, if you had something printed, that was a big deal. Now every 10-year-old, whose school has a 3D printer knows how to work with the code to print things.
But there's still the disparity, right? Because you're working with some students in an impoverished area now. You can see the differences in their school versus what a private school would have. They wouldn't have 3D printers.
Right. One of the sources of inequity in the US is that the public schools, a lot of their income, the money for the school comes from the taxes from the zip code that the school is located in. So a poor neighborhood is going to have less money for their school. So it's like a vicious cycle of, those that have the least are going to get the
Always
least,
have the least
equity.
And I would say that even though they might give them the iPad, if they take it home, if they don't have internet connection, or they live out in an area where it's spotty, that's been a real problem. I think we're seeing the classes separate here in the United States again. I don't think there's much of a middle class anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I will say this, there are grants, like some parents who are below a certain line. We work with some students who are homeschool students who are able to apply, and private school students can apply for this as well. There are grants, I forget, like the McKay scholarships or things like that, where they can use that money. The parent has the right to use that money in the way they see fit towards an educational purpose. So some people take, our after school program and are compensated through this grant, and it allows them to pay. So that there are some.
Yeah. So tell us about your STEM summit you had recently, that we were a part of, but we would like you to describe it for our audience, please.
First of all, thanks a lot for being part of it. Like it was a really informational one. We all could learn something from each other. So it was a 3-day summit. As part of the summit, we had programs for students, teachers, and STEM ambassadors. For students, it was an exchange program. So we did it with Amy and Monica. So we gave a similar challenge to students in India and students in the US. And they worked on it. The students, Monica's students, they had classes like offline classes. But in our case, the schools were shut down, so we had to manage it online. So we couldn't do the group one. And yeah, both sets of students did a great job. It was completely different. The structures looked very different. But I could see that the students had great fun building structures and interacting with each other. We had like a cultural exchange sort of thing as well. Yes, Kevin.
Let me share with our audience what Amina, she mentioned Monica and Amy. Monica Mormon is a 4th grade teacher in Broward County, Florida. She's a wonderful teacher of the year. She's a wonderful STEM ambassador. She does coding and whatnot. Amy Trujillo is a STEM outreach coordinator for a school in Orlando, Florida. And she is president of the Florida Association for the Gifted. So she's a wonderful STEM.
Well, in fact, our podcast
educator.
with her was about 2 episodes right before hers too. So
right.
We can link that.
So Miss Amina is mentioning the students from Florida in 2 different cities, right? Down in Broward County, Florida, South Florida, and Orlando, working with some students virtually during the summit. Now, please continue. I just wanted to give a little context of who Amy and Monica were.
Thank you, Kevin. And on day 2, we had some programs for teachers. We had a session from another STEM ambassador, Emilia Angelillo, and she did a demo of how we can make classrooms more exciting and visually appealing. She did some shows with fire and all, everything from a chemistry point of view. After that, we had different people from STEM professions, STEM careers, different STEM professionals sharing their career stories with children. And we had another segment where different STEM educators from India came online, and we discussed about the challenges we face. Like we just had a good discussion about where each company is, like where each firm is in terms of business, in terms of achieving their goal. And then was the last day when we had the discussion, like what does STEM mean in India, what does STEM mean in the US. So we had Prabha, Monica, Amy, Kevin, Shona, and ourselves, and we had the chairman of Oman schools as well. So we had a discussion on how STEM can bring about change in school systems and what the current position of education is in India and in the US.
Right. And so the ultimate goal then was to provide opportunities in this experiential kind of learning, and to also work not only with students and teachers, but decision makers, I guess, in education from both areas. And so are you planning to do this regularly, or is it something that you just wanted kind of the one time?
We are planning to do it as an annual event, like once every year.
Excellent. You had mentioned coding a couple of times. I'll throw this one to Kadija. Do you work with, and you mentioned Prabha, Dr. Prabha, great guy, neuroscientist, children's book author. We think the world of him. He works with microbits. Do your students work with microbits?
Not yet. Our students are mainly doing Scratch and Python, but we'll be introducing Microbit this year during this summer. Our summer classes, we'll be introducing Microbit. So yeah, we are just introducing Microbit this year.
That's wonderful. I'll talk to you offline about something about that. So that's great.
Well, we are to the end of our time, and I always like to throw out a general kind of advice question. So let's say you have some listeners out there who might be discouraged by their current educational system, and might be parents out there pioneering, or even teachers coming into the classroom who want to make a change. What advice do you have for those people who might be hitting that old school bureaucracy about moving forward?
We all face a lot of challenges, like from a business perspective. Like I don't know how many times we have spoken each other. Like I have asked Kadija, like, will we have to shut down? Will we be able to like proceed with this? So we come across that on a regular basis. It's easy to get disappointed, and it's quite natural to get disappointed, but we are not going to gain anything by being disappointed. So we really have to work, no matter what the step is, no matter how small the step is. Like you can consider us as two engineers, like two victims of the education system, or two young mothers who want to make education better for their children, or two responsible citizens who want to build a better education system for the entire nation. So the scale doesn't matter, but what you do really matters. Every small step counts. And even if you are a parent, why can't you teach? Why can't you start STEM training or experiential learning at home itself? You can't just blame the schools or educational systems. So take a step, no matter how small the step is, just take one step today. That's it.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, and I think, if you are in this STEM trade or business, I think you have to go about it, because this is the only way to go forward in our, for our education system, and for the future of our country or the world. So, just stay there and just go about it, because we don't have any other option right now. We have to do this, because if we don't do it, I don't think, we'll be able to inspire others around us. So, yeah.
We appreciate you spending some time. Before you go, if someone wanted to learn more about Little Martians or what you're doing, where could they go to get this information?
We are active on Instagram. Our Instagram profile is The Little Martians, and also we have a website on that is www.thelittlemartians.com. So we are available on both these platforms.
Great. I'll link that website there in our chat. So once again, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day, and we look forward to working with you and your students in the future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kevin and Shona.
Thank you, Kevin and Shona, for having us.
Thank you.